energy tips for week 50. That is the 8th till the 14th of December 2018. My name is Jona Brindis and I'm your energy coach, reflecting on collective energies and how they are affecting us. Going a step deeper here, what we can do to counteract this or to go with it, depending on what is being triggered in us, and knowing that not all of it is ours, how we can better contextualize what we are sensing, what we're dreaming, what we're feeling. All right, so we are currently still in quite a tricky week. There's a lot of emotional processing going on, and this will continue next week. So I want you guys to understand that, energies are not really going by the calendar. Okay, so hang in there. If you are having a few things that are bothering you right now, be it physically, emotionally, mentally, or in your relationship or with your family, then know that this is part of our growth process, okay, of our awakening process. There are these expansion waves or awakening waves that we all experiencing here, whether we are energetically sensitive or not. And the way this comes across is that we feel the intensity. It's like an intensity that comes from within. It's all an inside job right now, okay? And this makes it a little difficult to communicate. This makes it a little difficult to understand. We're not in this alone, but at the same time, nobody really talks about this. And so we're feeling that, it's just us going through this. Here at transCODES, we have this huge community, and that really helps to see that it is not just us, and that really puts things into perspective. But this is part of our learning task here for next week. Okay, we kind of forced to go into exchange, to go into this more communicative and more connective place with others. So many of us, feel that the energies of other people are bombarding, that they're too much for us, that we already have enough to do with our own stuff. But understand that part of this awakening process is to really go into the next level of connectedness, and this includes other people. So as humans, we are designed, to grow and evolve together. All right. And this next week will show this to you. So each and every one of us who will try to figure this out on our own, to try to fix, or to try to heal, or to try to find a solution on our own, will run into limits. This is probably happening to you right now. There is no sort of synergy. There is no real leveling up, there is no really going into the next level of evolution with our consciousness without this exchange, without going into interaction, without engaging. Okay, and this challenges a lot of us here because we've made negative experiences in the past, and we're not feeling confident, that we can really work with the bombardment or with, the stuff that is coming in from the outside. But I want you to know that, if you're concerned about your ego and how, things can get triggered, and how triggers can make your ego and your coping and all that go worse, is that, when you stay in that sort of boiling in your own juices type of state, you are in fact amplifying your own ego juices. You are actually not growing, you're looping. Okay, and the things that we're experiencing right now, they're primarily learning experience. Those are things that need to come forward to show us exactly where these limits are, and to in order to grow with them, we have to calibrate ourselves. We have to adjust to these new limits. Okay, it's like finding the absolute minimum, finding the minimum requirement, you know, which is represented through our needs, and then finding the maximum, you know, finding, you know, like sort of the ideal. What is it that we truly desire from our heart, you know, our true heart's desire that comes together with the calling, that comes together with our talents, with our superpowers, okay? And the space in between is the one that is actually expanding. And so for us to find our place there and to calibrate ourselves within this space, we have to work with these limits now. We have to work with how much is too much and how much is too little. Am I being self-centered here, or am I being codependent? You know, am I taking care, or am I trying to please others too much, or am I just like selflessly interested in my personal desires, you know, no matter what the cost? This is the growing experience that you are going through currently. And this means that a lot of us have to first learn how to discern needs from desires, you know, how to discern, you know, my wants, which have to do with our ego, you know, it's the pleasure seeking that we talked about last week, and the needs, which trigger the ego. So they trigger the pleasure seeking, okay? Because if my needs are not met, then I go into this distractive coping, you know, that does, sort of, or that is supposed to compensate for that. So if I know my needs really well, and if I honor them, and if I really work with my own limitations, you know, if I know how much I can, or how far I can go, or how much I can put into something, or, you know, that I have to put in more, you know, then I can also better feel when it's too much or when it's too little, when I have to ask for things, when I have to express myself so that the other can understand that, you know, that it is that I need, without having to go into assumptions or conclusions. So all this is really supposed to help us to come to a more effective problem solving, you know, in the future. Because, you know, with this expanding consciousness, you know, we are also growing into our higher goals. And in order to hold the space of our higher vibratory consciousness level, we also need higher vibratory problem solving mechanisms, okay? So the piece here, you know, that is coming in very clearly this week is the mutual exchange, the collaboration. And I've talked about this throughout the week, throughout the year, you know, a few times, you know, how this is the higher vibratory concept, you know, and this is something that wants to establish here in our new reality that we are birthing right now, okay? And that is that we finally realize that we are all in this together, and that solutions cannot be found by, you know, some, I don't know, authority outside of us, you know, telling us what to do, but only through us coming together as true selves and working things out together. Okay. Underneath that is, you know, the task to really become more familiar, become a little more effective with our personal energy management, and you know, to really, you know, unlock this level of our superpowers. So you're gonna hear me talk about superpowers a lot next year, because 2019 is all about growing into our true source of power, in our natural strengths, our natural talents, and really finding this level of fulfillment that we are all looking for, that we can only find if we truly become the best that we can be, the best at being me in conjunction with others. And in order to do all of this, okay, we have to like slowly level up, slowly, you know, go on our path and pay attention to each and every stepping stone It's just like in a computer game, guys, if you get stuck in a certain level, that means that there's something that you either missed or something that you're not seeing. And if you just ask yourself continuously, is there something I'm not seeing? Or is there something that I've missed? Is there something that I'm avoiding or that I'm denying because, I'm too comfortable where I'm at, and I'm not really willing to go the extra mile. I'm not really willing to overcome my fears. Then this is exactly where you need to go. Those of you who have experience with gaming know that, the solutions, when we get stuck in a level, they're usually right there when we normally don't look. So it's part of thinking outside the box, including what you cannot see, including, what is outside of your mindset right now. Okay, so allow yourselves to naturally expand. Go with those expansion waves, okay, and see them as an invitation to grow. If we, try to resist this, and this is something that you can all picture as sort of a normal or natural growth process, then you are basically standing in the way. You're standing in the way of your true nature to unfold, okay? And that creates a lot of friction within. That creates a lot of loss, of energy, a lot of power outage within you, okay? So besides all the, the outer stuff that is really sort of disconcerting right now, it's really all about how well you can manage your power from within, and then how well you can translate that into 3D, with others, in your personal life. So fulfillment, guys, can really only come through mutual exchange, through working it out, through communicating, through really improving, the current situation through adding another component, enriching your life's recipe, if you will. So the way to do this, and we will talk about this here when we look at the tips that I have for you in the emotional realm, how to handle your emotions better, is through sharing your emotions, and through really understanding that emotional processing means, the way you deal with your emotions. And one big mistake that I see in people is that they assume that everybody else processes their emotions just like they do, and that is actually not the case. We all have this narcissistic idea, that everybody else has, sees everything the same way, or not that they have the same opinions about things, but that they see everything what we see, and that is not the case. We assume that everybody does everything for the same reason as we do, and that is not the case. So when it comes to the deeper mechanisms of human interaction, the unseen aspects of human interaction, there are some major sort of behavioral patterns that have developed between people. And last week we talked about your personal core coping patterns, right? Well, now multiply that, because when two people come together, both coping patterns, they affect another, okay? And if you are narcissistic, then if you are selfish, for instance, then what you create, is from an energetic point of view, is an intrusion, of other people's energies. If you project, if you make the other responsible, or if you, have these grandiose ideas of how things should be, perfectionism or idealism, like, or specialness, then you literally, intrude into the other person's energy field, sort of your projection of things. And if you withdraw, and if you, deny, if you avoid, okay, then you're automatically pulling the other person's energies in. And remember how I so often point out that the more a person projects, the more they actually open up, their own energy field for absorption. Well, the reason for that is that when you push into another person's energy, it automatically creates sort of a pull back. It wants to be compensated. It wants to be balanced again. And so, the moment you stop projecting, that's when you absorb the stuff, okay, and vice versa. So there's a connection between push pull and projecting and absorbing, between too much and too little. And that's why this is important, that we learn what these limits are. And in order to learn to operate better within those limits, it's best to communicate this with others, to express this, to say, hey, this is making me feel restricted a little bit, I feel like you're pushing in too much, or this is pulling me into your field because you're withdrawing too much, you're avoiding too much. Okay, this can only be calibrated really through communicating this, and it starts, of course, within ourselves, that we look at how we contextualize things that are happening to us. Are we, making others responsible for our emotions? Do we literally hear a voice saying, oh, you made me mad, or, you did this to me, then chances are that you are externalizing too much. Nobody can make you feel in any way. That is, not anything that anybody else could do or could, have the power to do, unless you give the power to them. And the other way around, of course. If you feel left alone, if you feel, that, nobody's really giving this to you, and you are, sort of push into the other person with your requests, with your needs, if you are too needy, then you also are creating an imbalance there between you and the other person. Because now the other person, especially if the other person is energetically sensitive, feels, kind of forced, to do this, and this can be really draining, and then the other person gets into that place where, they try and try and try and never really get the feeling that it's arriving, that you're receiving it. And so pay attention, to the real motives underneath your behavior patterns with particular people, especially with those people where you get stuck, like your family, your kids, or your partners, and, look at this kind of, working on this kind of communication really helps you to make better choices, to resolve things better, okay, to come to better results. All right, so it does take a little bit of work, guys. Yes, but don't forget that this journey is about, self-expression. Self-expression requires the feedback from the outside, not the judgment, but the feedback. You need to know how what you're doing works, and and through that, then you can learn how to make corrections and how to evolve, so that it can ultimately bring out the best in you. So we're all in this journey here, to become the best at who we can be, not in comparison with others, not, in order to compete or in order to be better than others, but to become the best that we can be. So this is kind of like, the theme here that weaves through all these different layers of our existence. And energetically, the way this will show up in our societies, on a collective planetary level, is that a lot of people will get sort of a strong need, to go inward here, to like kind of like feel like I've had enough of news, from all this rah, and to really go, pull in a little bit, cave in a little bit, you know, and getting tired of all this bombardment, this push from the outside. So at the same time, there's also, you know, a danger that comes with it, and that is when we all pull in, you know. That's usually, you know, when things happen in the background, you know, that you know, that mislead us, misguide us. There's things that we are missing here. You know, this is, in my experience, the time when, you know, our governments or, you know, sort of the power structures that are there, when they push out things that we simply can't see, because our, you know, our intuition is to just pull in. So overall, we are in a huge sort of liberation process that will continue all year next year, you know. And this liberation is all about getting away from rigid power structures. You know, there was some more purpose needed. There was some more, you know, sort of what's good for all needed, and this is slowly coming in. It requires us, you know, to heal some of the wounds in the past and to do a little bit of shadow work here as a whole society. And on the other hand, it requires us, you know, to become more self-responsible and self-sufficient and not rely, you know, on these power structures too much or blame him too much, and at the same time. All right. Chakra wise, you know, the chakras involved here in the energetic dynamics next week is pretty much all of our chakras, but you know, let's stay with the how I usually break this down. So we still have the fourth and the sixth really active, which is very beautiful. You know, this means that, you know, we are supposed to bring our heart into our true vision of things, you know, seeing things the way they are, expressing things the way they are from our heart level. And this is the sort of the pinch that is coming in here. We get a little extra fifth chakra aspect here. A lot of people having throat issues right now because we need to rock up in our expression, in our self-expression, and that can't just be inwardly, that has to go outward. And if it gets suppressed, you know, then we often come down with something, you know, like a laryngitis or losing our voice and something like that. So fourth, fifth, and sixth, you know, they really want to come together right now. And at the same time, and this is, you know, where all this explosiveness and all this emotional, you know, processing comes from. Our first chakra, that's our root, you know, that's you know, our deep inner child wounds and some of the karmic stuff that we have, in conjunction with our third chakra. That's where our willpower is. That's where this new energy that we are perceiving that is coming in, you know, this quickening, you know, wants us to do something, you know, to go into action, and they're conflicting. All right. And on top of all of that, you know, it's a huge open or opening, you know, seventh chakra, crown chakra, for all of us and the entire planet. You know, this connection to the divine Wi-Fi, you know, this connection to the universe, to, you know, sort of divine energies. Okay, so you can tell there is a lot going on. Okay, and we don't even have to have our second chakra involved. You know, this is where our emotions get stored, you know. To feel, you know, that this is about us, you know, handling our emotions. So the cool thing is, because our second chakra is not involved, it allows us to see our emotions and our emotional reactions, and that helps with the processing. Now, physically, what this is going to do to us, because this is so basically all over, is that it's going to make us really tired, really sleepy. I know some of you have already felt this week. So basically, you know, the best thing to handle that is to go into self-care, you know, to really know, and if you don't know this yet, then work on this, you know, how you can reinstate, you know, your calm, how you can reinstate, you know, sort of a grounded and centered place with yourself, you know, whatever it is. If you have to take a walk, if you have to listen to music, if you have to bake a cake like me, if you have to take a bath, if you know, have to drink you know, a nice hot cup of tea, you know, or do some essential oils, whatever it is that you know, can bring you into this sort of inward place, but without isolating yourself too much, you know, just basic self-care, so that you can recharge and go back out and liberate yourself from these rigid structures. You know, another way, you know, these structures will come forward in your physical, you know, will feel like this overall stiffness, you know, and you don't really want to move too much, maybe because it's really cold where you are, you know. Then find other ways to express that physically, you know. Start knitting, or start embroidery, or, you know, painting or writing, you know. Find creative expressions, you know, for this. And many of you are dealing with issues in regards to the holidays, you know, like how to do your Christmas, whom to invite, blah blah blah, you know, and how to work all this out and trying to please others. This is part of our physical expression, you know, because we want this, we want to feel this belongingness, we want to really feel this. And Christmas, for many, at least, you know, in the Christian societies, is very sensual, you know. There's a lot of taste and smell involved in this, all right. And you know, if you, you know, can't really do the things that you've done in the past, or don't want to do them anymore, then I strongly advise you to come up with your own ceremonies, your own rituals. You know, there's people who do tapping, there's people who do meditation retreats, there's people, you know, who do all kinds of different ways of celebrating, you know, sort of these last weeks in the year, you know, to go inward and to allow, you know, this unification from within to happen. So develop your own healing ceremony. So this doesn't even have to do with Christmas or the holidays, whatever the holiday is that you are celebrating, you know. Develop your own healing ceremony. And even if it's just one that you do while you're taking a shower. So make sure that you can feel safe within your home, within your body, because those are the things that, you know, that belong to fundamental self-care, so that you can go back out, you know, and communicate and interact with others. Emotionally, you know, we've already covered this a little bit. It has to do with, you know, dealing with your emotions and finding, you know, more effective ways, you know, to process them. And when I say processing, don't misunderstand me. This is not necessarily a mental processing. So processing emotions and really understanding the dynamics behind it has to do with you being willing to actually feel them, to sit in them. Allow your emotions. And I know a lot of you guys have these anger spouts right now, you know, you're feeling anger rising in you. And again, I want to emphasize this for you, that anger is a better energy than fear or pain, you know. Not better as in like good or bad, but better as in it's a higher vibratory state that you can be in. Most of us don't really know healthy ways to express anger, so it ends up destructive, you know, either in vengeance or, you know, in trying to smash something or trying to, you know, disrupt something or deflect something. So if you're not quite clear yet, you know, what healthy ways to express anger means for you, then, you know, give yourself that space next week, you know, and say, you know what, I want to actively work with this, you know, I want to grow there. I want to learn how to get past anger without having to suppress it. Because remember, every time you repress something, you know, your ego coping gets triggered. So what I'm expecting to happen here next week is that a lot of us are going to freak in. Okay, not freak out, but freak in. Because that's you know, sort of our coping is to repress it, you know, to put the lid on things and freak in. Do not do this. Don't freak in. Freak out if you have to, you know, and then make corrections as you go. All right. Learn to work with these new limits, you know, by expanding out of your comfort zone. All right. And you know, when it comes to the emotions, it has a lot to do with our needs and desires, as I covered earlier. You know, understand or you know, consciously work with these minimum requirements and and your maximum stretch, like this is how far I can go, and after that it gets really tricky. I don't want to go there. That's all right. So know where your limits are, and also express them. Mentally, working with limitations, always leads us to kind of acknowledging that our mind, is limited to our ego perception, and that where we want to go here on this journey, for most of us, to find fulfillment and purpose in higher vibratory goals, the mind cannot really get you there. It is it makes up a part of our journey to learn things and to gain knowledge, but then it's really all about being and becoming. What we will discover this week is, when it comes to this sort of mental aspect of our journey, is our true motives. What are our true motives? And if we get stuck somewhere, it's usually because there's a form of denial or a form of avoidance, where we don't really want to look at what our true motives are. And my tip for you here is, don't be afraid of your own motives. It's totally okay to recognize that you're only doing this for ego's sake, or that you're doing something because it's, coming from your inner child, okay? It's totally okay to recognize that. That then allows you to come up or to develop, better strategies. Another way to channel, your mental energies here in this next week, because they're coming in, as in wanting to grow, wanting to learn, is to develop an abundance strategy for the next year. To really sit down, to really do it now. Do your vision board, do a financial strategy for next year. You don't have to have a plan. You don't have to have it all, planned out, month by month. It's more about, like, come up with a better strategy, apply all the things that you've learned this year, okay, and give yourselves a week for that, to really go into, what are things that I can do better next year in regards to finances, in regards to my physical well-being. This is really important, guys. Those of you, who still haven't found that balance with your physical, really develop a strategy here, for bettering your connection with your body, and maybe losing a few pounds. But it's not really about that. It's more about being healthier, So I can announce this already. By the beginning of the year, I'm probably going to come up with a challenge for all Heart Warriors and Patreon subscribers, and that will be like something along those lines, a 30-day challenge, where we do 5 minutes physical exercise, 5 minutes energetic alignment, 5 minutes of emotional release together, all right, to just have this to build this habit. Okay, so when it comes to strategy, then don't just look at goals. This is a mistake that a lot of people do. They just look at goals. Strategy has nothing to do with your goals. It does, but it's not about that. It's more about how can I form healthier habits or more efficient habits that can get me to my goals. Okay, so when do I need to do it, and how can I do it? That's something I would strongly recommend you guys here. And you'll see that at transCODES we have a lot of workshops and energy sessions here these next 2 weeks that have to do with conscious manifestation. So if you wanted to learn how to energetically do this, then check the transCODES calendar. There's a beautiful workshop, and coming up here, free for the Sacred Self-Healing members. So there's a lot going on. Socially, we will try to figure out what, this true self-expression really means in our relationships, in our job, and how can I translate that, like what is okay to ask for and what is too much, what is, this unconditionality that I long for, but how can I give that? Is enabling, and pleasing the same as unconditionally loving somebody? I don't know. So a lot of you guys will have these deeper insights into, what these new rules of engagement, between, two people, between two true selves are, but I also feel this really deep longing for this one soulmate. Okay, so we have the twin soul reunification session coming up here on Sunday night, where we energetically work with this, but not the way you think, not by calling in somebody else, by externalizing this again. No, by working with our own soul unification, okay, to get ourselves into that place that we can become a better partner instead of trying to find a better partner. Okay, so communicate, your true feelings, allow for your vulnerabilities to come forward, because this is how you grow, this is how you learn. And some of you will actually also be confronted with things that you normally don't talk about, the things that are a bit in the hidden, or the taboos, or the things that you feel a bit awkward to talk about. Don't shy away from talking about this next week. Okay, this will really bump your relationship up into a new level. Okay, spiritually, these awakening waves, they bring in quite an intense sort of spiritual emergence, and for many of us this can lead to a spiritual emergency. It can feel like a crisis, it can feel like we're really going into the depths of something here, where we've never been. And so some people, feel that this is a crisis. Okay, but what it really is just, leveling up. Okay, and in order to level up, you have to, accept that you don't know the fix yet. You don't know the answers. So be okay to not know the answers. Give this expansion room. Give yourself room for errors. Surrender all these things that you cannot fix to your inner higher power, to your inner grace. Okay, and that's how you get back into peace, inner peace. That allows you to be vulnerable, to be open, so that you can, allow sort of these new tasks, of this new level that you're entering, to come in and become aware for you. Energetically, I mentioned this a few times already, it's about energy management. It's about, really bringing the healed masculine and feminine, the healed healer and the healed warrior in us together. And this is a very, very exciting phase of our journey. And those of you, who go with me here into the depths of energy work in our ongoing energy sessions, I know this will be very interesting for you, because we go really deep with this. So this is a whole different level of working your own energies, of going into your inner balance. Okay, so the whole point of this everything that I just talked about, is for you to be better able to tap into your true source of power, into your superpowers, into your natural talents, your natural, your natural potions. Those are not potions, but you know what I mean, the stuff that you have, that really represents, the highest that you can be. Okay? And the reason why we're not naturally connected with those is because we've got too many layers around this, and we have too many ideas and mindsets, that tell us we have to be somebody different. We want to be like this person, or we want to be like this, or we don't want to be like us. Okay, and that locks up the access to our own superpowers. So in order to grow now, and in order to really excel with all of this, you need to know what your superpowers are, what your true talents are. And for that, you can't go approach this with your ego, because that's going to backfire right away. Self-coaching tips for next week, is here the basic self-care level, and with it also, sort of the physical aspect, what makes me stronger. Okay, what makes me become more effective, you know, in my energy management, in my emotional handling, in my relationships. Where are my natural talents and how can I bring them to expression, but without intruding, you know, into others, without, you know, like taking away things from others or even draining, you know, their energy. And when do I need to pull back? Or when am I pulling back where I need to open up? Those are really important things for those of you here that try to work out this whole idea of true love and true love relationship. Okay? So this is it, guys. Very, very exciting energy update. We have a special that was released today, a clearing special for the end of the year that you may want to look at. And exciting times, guys. Thank you for watching. See you next week. Bye bye.